The Streete Files. A complete mystery short story. Every Wednesday. File 30. Beneath the Surface. It's 10 in the morning on a Sunday when Olivia Streete and 5 people from the manufacturing company, Lane Daventry, meet at passport control in St Pancras Station. She had accepted this freelance contract for a week's work in Paris only 2 days ago. Lane Daventry are going public in the summer, and her role is to cover off the legal aspects of that change. Olivia introduces herself, and everyone shuffles through the checks before reaching the platform. They find seats on the Eurostar, and hers is opposite one of the men in the group. "So, James," she begins, "you can be my guide as you're the HR man. Tell me about the people in this group." "Peter Daventry," he says, and nods over his shoulder to a man in his late 40s on one of the 4-seater sections down the carriage. "One of the 2 partners, now operations director. Started the business 5 years ago. Very clever. Nothing gets past him." A hostess approaches them and they order coffee and choose their breakfast options. Opposite him, the blonde woman, Ellie Sutton, is number 2. They're a couple, but no one talks about it. "Why is that?" she says. "She's ambitious, doesn't like the idea of being in his shadow." "What about the young chap on the laptop and sitting on his own over there?" she says. "Rory, data analyst, nerdy. Peter rates him. He's good, actually. Just don't expect any talk other than data." "And the auburn-haired woman on the next set of seats? Coral, isn't it?" "Yeah, Coral Flynn. Marketing. Some wouldn't trust her." "Why?" "The feedback is she's opaque," says James. "Something about her doesn't add up." "What about you?" she says. "How would the others describe you?" "A reliable confidant," he says. "The guardian of their secrets, are you?" "Maybe." "What are your weaknesses?" she says. And he thinks for a second. "Gullible." The doors at the end of the carriage slide open, and James looks up, towards whoever has just walked in. "This'll be interesting," he says. "Michael Lane is here too. The other partner in Lane Daventry." He wasn't expected. Michael is tall and fair-haired. "Hi, Peter," he says to his partner. "Thought I'd come along to these Paris sessions." Peter stands up and puts his hand on Michael's arm. "Good to see you. Let's talk. The buffet car's the next carriage." The 2 men walk out of the sliding doors, and Olivia and James continue to talk about the company. After 5 minutes, the breakfasts are served at the table in the carriage, and Olivia notices that Peter Daventry returns to his seat alone while they're eating. "I'm going to the bathroom," says James, after the food is finished, and he walks off. Olivia pulls out a copy of a book that she bought at the station, called Secrets in Blood, and she starts to read. Exactly 52 minutes after pulling away from the platforms in St Pancras, the Eurostar plunges into the tunnel mouth, and the light outside goes dark. Less than a minute later, a blonde hostess walks into the carriage. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have to ask you to move along to the next carriage." She seems flustered. The passengers slowly start to gather their belongings, and Olivia walks over to the hostess, who is wearing a name badge with Eve on it. "Is everything okay?" she says. "Yes, madam, an incident, unfortunately, in the buffet car. We'll provide a trolley service." "No one hurt, I hope?" "A fatality, I'm afraid." "Is there a doctor on board?" says Olivia. "No." Eve's blue eyes are watery. "So who has confirmed death?" "I did," says Eve. "I'm the service manager." "They could be alive," says Olivia. "What did you check for?" Eve seems uncertain and pauses. "I have some medical knowledge, and I'm a lawyer. Do you want me to have a look at them? They may be recoverable, and just fainted." "Okay, yes." Eve leads her to the sliding doors that have been locked. She pulls out her train key and they go inside, and Eve locks the doors again. Michael Lane's body is slumped on the floor between the window and the bar where drinks and food are served, in this buffet car. Olivia kneels down and checks his pulse on his carotid artery on the side of his neck. Then she looks at his pupils. Outside the windows, the black sides of the tunnel flash past as the train pushes under the sea. "He is dead," she says. "Michael Lane, he's called. Overdose, I'd say. Blue lips. Pupils are tiny. There's a smell of alcohol on him, too. Maybe he took some sort of drug and mixed it with alcohol, and it was too much for his body to cope with." Eve is hovering behind her. "Do you have to stop the train?" says Olivia. "No, everyone will be kept inside until the police let us go at the Gare du Nord." "Are we halfway through the tunnel yet?" "A few minutes before we get to the middle," says Eve. "This death is subject to the laws of England and Wales in that case, not France. You need the British Transport Police when you arrive," says Olivia. "How many people are on board?" 712. "Can you handle 712 disgruntled people?" "It's the job." "I may be able to provide the police with some information when we arrive, if that would help. The circumstances of the death, the man's background, that sort of thing," says Olivia. "It would reduce the waiting time for your train full of passengers." "All right," says Eve. "I need to go and report the incident." "Can I talk to you later?" says Olivia. "I'll come back and find you." They go back into the carriage and Peter is still there, in his seat, despite everyone else having moved further down the train. Eve walks on and Olivia sits down opposite Peter. "You don't know me, Mr. Daventry. I'm a freelance lawyer, working for you for the next week or so on the legal aspects of the initial public offering." "Okay," he says. "Do you know what's happened?" "Terrible. An accident, of course." "No, he was killed by someone." "What do you mean? He died, not killed by someone. Those are very different. Natural causes, I would have thought." "An overdose," says Olivia. "He was an engineer, wasn't he? And that's not the way an engineer would commit suicide. It's very ad hoc, very risky, uncontrolled." Peter's face pulls together, and he looks down at the table. "The Eurostar service manager has asked me to collect information on him, to assist the British Transport Police when we get to the Gare du Nord," she says. "Can I ask you some questions?" "Yeah, of course." He is still in shock, she can tell. So she'll proceed with caution for two reasons: the man's own welfare, but also that witnesses in shock aren't reliable. "You started the company together?" she begins. 5 years ago, Peter had an idea for reinforced plastic fabrication. He just couldn't scale it to a business. I had those skills. A match made in heaven." "What was he like?" "A perfectionist, like a lot of engineers. He approached people like technology. He thought you'd get the same output with the same input. That's not what people are like, of course." "What do you know about his personal life?" she says. "Not much, to be honest. Had a place in Richmond." "Married?" "No, widower, actually. She died 10 years ago." "Did he take drugs?" she says, and watches the man's face to see what he's thinking inside. "No, not at all. Not his scene," says Peter. "He died of an overdose. Looks like drugs and alcohol. His drink was likely laced with an opioid." Peter shakes his head, still in disbelief about all this news. "Did he have enemies?" "No." "What about you?" she says. "Do you have enemies?" "Me?" He's incredulous. "No, of course not."
"You're successful, ambitious, moving towards being the CEO of a public company. You've never trodden on toes in your scramble up the hillside?"
"It's not my style," he says.
"What is your style?" She can see in his face that he's glad to move away from questions about Michael.
I'm a regular guy, he says. Just a businessman.
Tell me about Ellie.
He looks directly at Olivia. That's a private matter. He's cool. A man used to dealing with difficult circumstances.
Others may see a personal relationship as a hindrance to smooth company operations.
Let them think whatever they like. It's not my concern.
Other people's views are not important to you?
Only if they have some credibility, says Peter. The world is full of people with opinions these days. Opinion seems to matter more than expertise at times.
You don't like opinions?
As I said, an opinion is just that. A meaningless concept if it's not backed up by data. Have we finished here? I think you've got some background on the man. A tragedy. If you're reporting to the police, tell them I'll personally do everything to support them.
He stands up and hurries away. Olivia walks after him into the next carriage, where the team from Lane Daventry are now sitting. She sees the fair-haired Rory and walks over to him. Rory, can we talk? I'm Olivia.
His large brown eyes blink, and she can see that he's emotional.
You know what's happened?
She says, and he nods nervously.
It's a difficult time. How are you doing?
She drops into the seat.
I'm scared. Why scared?
I work with Mr. Lane on data analysis. That's what I do.
Why are you scared, though?
They killed him, didn't they? And I was helping him.
Who killed him?
The people he was chasing.
You've lost me, she says. Start at the beginning.
My world is data, patterns, numbers,
says Rory.
It's all the same thing, really, just different ways of looking at logic. He was the same. Mr. Lane always wanted to know exactly what the steps were to get to an end vision.
You liked him?
I deal with logic, not people,
says Rory.
I don't know if I liked him.
Let's use numbers then, she says. What percentage of the time did he tell you things that turned out to be correct, honest, or above board?
Always.
Do you have any data about him cutting corners or wanting to go into areas that were less than wholesome?
No. He hated that sort of thing. Hated people getting around the system.
How do you know? You answered my questions immediately, without having to work through the logic. You just knew the answer, so you must have used data to draw your conclusions, she says. Understanding people is like that, Rory. Their behaviours give away what's inside their heads. Behaviours is your data, and that's my job. Finding out what they're really thinking, despite what they're saying. He looks serious. Tell me about Mr. Lane's behaviours when he came across corruption. What did he do?
He had a black book,
says Rory.
I only saw it once. He kept it in his inside jacket pocket all the time. He never let it out of his sight.
What was in it?
Corruption.
Go on.
It all goes back to this IPO, the initial public offering. We're going to the market for the first time and offering our stocks and shares to be traded. But it's being done because we're hemorrhaging cash. It's disappearing somewhere, being siphoned off. I was helping Mr. Lane to find out where it was going.
Did he identify individuals in his book? She says.
I only saw it once. It didn't say anything about names.
Do you think he was killed by someone trying to stop him compiling this information?
Rory nods.
Olivia thanks him and stands up. Then she asks Ellie if she would be willing to have a quick chat. The woman is more than happy to help, and they walk back into the now empty carriage, one down from the buffet car, and Michael Lane's dead body. The woman has long blonde hair tied back in a low ponytail, and designer glasses over her pale blue eyes. Ellie, as you know, I'm a lawyer, but I'm also a detective, and the train service manager has asked me to collect some background information about Michael to give to the police in Paris, so we can all get released more quickly. The woman doesn't say anything, but takes a deep breath. Tell me about Michael Lane.
Not much to tell,
she says.
Kept himself to himself.
You work with Peter, mostly, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Did the two of them get on? They were very different. says Olivia.
The best team's made up of different types. Peter's the brains behind the company.
Michael was the inventor, though, wasn't he? He had the original idea. The process at the heart of the business. You don't seem very unhappy, says Olivia. A man died who was a senior figure in the company where you hold a senior role too. You don't feel any sadness?
It's business. It's not personal.
Olivia can see that she needs to break the frosty outer layer of Ellie's demeanour. Is Peter a good boss?
He's okay,
she says. What's his management style? Ellie thinks for a second.
Directive.
Tell me more.
He has a clear vision of what he wants, and we have to stick to that. He doesn't like people going off-piste.
He sounds difficult, says Olivia.
Bosses aren't perfect. If you don't like their style, you only have two options. Leave, or wait until they do. People don't change their behaviour. It's hardwired into our heads.
Olivia turns the screw. How long have you been sleeping together? She says. Ellie nearly lies. The muscles in the woman's face move slightly, then stop, and reform to allow her to say,
A year.
Is it serious?
Of course.
She frowns, but Olivia can tell that some of this is an act, and she needs to delve deeper to find the real Ellie. He's a good time boy, isn't he? You like that? Playing him the way he's playing you? Neither of you caring what happens. Just a fleeting era, a few weeks or months, then one of you moves on as the other has ceased to be of value. Just a game of chicken, really.
I don't see that. How do you think Michael was killed? Heart attack?
He was killed, was he?
You're the detective, you tell me.
It was an overdose. Did he participate in drug-taking of any sort?
I wouldn't know, Olivia. But I do know that this sort of end was always going to happen.
Why do you say that?
Live fast, die young. It was their motto, him and Peter. When they set the company up. Look, I've told you everything I'm going to tell you.
She stands up and walks through the sliding doors, as the service manager comes in, through the other way. Eve, says Olivia, have you got a couple of minutes?
Sure.
She sits down opposite Olivia in the block of 4 seats. Have you managed to resettle everyone? She says.
Yeah, my team's good.
Did you find the body?
Not really,
says Eve.
I was walking through the buffet car. There was maybe half a dozen people around. Some in the queue, some eating and drinking the things they'd bought.
And what happened?
He'd bought a drink, a short, and he was standing by the window and resting his glass on the little shelf there. I said a few words to the barman, Louis, and I can remember now that I looked at the dead man. Just flicked my eyes across. He was with a woman. One of the group you're with, I think. Ginger hair?
Coral, says Olivia. Go on.
They were laughing,
says Eve.
She was very touchy-feely with him. Had her hand on his hand, you know. You can get to recognise it when you see people day in, day out.
Recognise what?
People being surreptitious, hiding something.
An affair? Says Olivia.
That's harder to tell, but the two of them were behaving as though they were party to something that was drawing them together. It could have been something completely normal, like both on the same work project.
You're backtracking now, says Olivia. To be polite.
I don't want to slag off the customers. Their business is their business. I'm just here to make the journey better.
At that second, the train pushes out of the darkness and into the French countryside, and the sunlight cracks across the carriage. And then what happened? Says Olivia.
She walked away. He took a mouthful of drink. I was still talking to Louis. The man grabbed his chest and collapsed straight down. Not sliding down. He hit the floor with a bang.
And what did you do?
Went over, tried to revive him,
she says.
Because I've had people fainting on the train. It's just a blood pressure thing. But after a minute, I realised he'd gone.
Then you cleared the buffet car, and that's when you came out, and into the next carriage, and you and I talked. Eve nods. You didn't see the man before that, says Olivia. He was in the buffet car with another businessman. Earlier on, just after we left St. Pancras. Wasn't he? I saw them walk in here from my seat. I didn't see that, she says. Okay, thank you. Eve unlocks the buffet car doors and slips through. Olivia goes to find the auburn-haired marketeer from the company, Coral Flynn, and she explains to her what she's been asked to do by the service manager. This woman, too, is happy to go and sit in the now empty carriage next to the buffet car. You're the head of marketing in the company, Coral. Is that right? She nods. Tell me about Michael Lane. He was professional, easy to work with, a visionary. You were close? Olivia looks at her, and she can see that Coral is being very careful with her words. No, we weren't. You were laughing and joking with him, people have said. Just before he died? In the buffet car? Yes, but we weren't close. What was the nature of your relationship with him? None. Colleagues. What's your attitude to corruption? I don't like it. What are you getting at? Tell me about Michael's attitude to people getting around the system, says Olivia. You've lost me. He had a little black book, says Olivia. A record of crimes inside the organization. He had it on him at all times. Did he show you that book? I don't know what you're talking about, says Coral. I thought this was going to be about his death, to help the police. What are you implying? That I was in cahoots with him? This has nothing to do with Michael. It's irrelevant. But very relevant if the police investigate the death of an innocent man. What do you mean, an innocent man? Coral is getting more frustrated, but Olivia ploughs on to jump-start a reaction. The quiet inventor found himself having to deal with people, which he found more difficult than dealing with ideas and machines. He hated corruption and people gaming the system. He was on a mission to root out the bad apples, and his drink was spiked before he could get anywhere. Not before he could get anywhere. The truth spills out onto the table between them. So you do know about his black book and his mission to clean up the organization. Coral breathes out heavily. I need this job. I don't want to lose my job. And why would you? Coral looks down at the table, then out at the French countryside, speeding by. He'd found something. He'd found someone, I should say. The main protagonist. But they'd covered their tracks. You were seen, and to quote the witness who saw you, being touchy-feely with Michael Lane before he collapsed. How do you explain that? Nothing to do with his death. Tell me then, says Olivia. It'll come out in the police investigation anyway. You may as well speak now, and we can assess how significant it is. Coral looks at her. We were leaving the organization to set up a rival company, using a new idea of his, an AI-driven tool. He was going to be CEO, and I would be CMO. What makes you think that has nothing to do with his death? Says Olivia. Why would you kill someone for that? The doors hiss open, and James, the HR man, is there. Are we finished? Says Coral, and she stands up and has walked away before Olivia has a chance to answer. Come and sit down, James, says Olivia. I need to review the case, and normally my daughter does this with me, but she's not here. So you'll have to be my Dr. Watson. He slips into the chair. Everyone seems to have a secret in the group. Something hidden beneath the surface. She counts out on the fingers of her hand. 1. Peter doesn't care about what people think of him, unless they have data to back it up. He is sleeping with Ellie Sutton, but he didn't want to talk about it. He does not seem very affected by the death of his business partner, but, by his own admission, they weren't close personal friends, just colleagues. 2. Rory Barnes. He told me that Michael was collecting a black book of crimes and corruption inside the company. I don't know if that's true, we have no other evidence, but stopping Michael sharing that black book with the police or others could be a motive for murder. 3. Ellie. She told me that the motto of Peter and Michael is live fast, die young, but that seems at odds with everything else I've learned. On the contrary, Michael was the opposite of that mantra, and Peter talked about opinion being meaningless without data to back it up. So, a man of logic, not a follower of a laissez-faire lifestyle. Lastly, 4. Coral Flynn. The murder weapon was a spiked alcoholic drink, as far as I can tell, without toxicology tests. Coral was seen laughing and joking with Michael minutes before he died. So she had opportunity. She's the one, says James. Coral, I said to you earlier, didn't I? She's hiding something. As Peter would say, opinion is nothing without data, James. What's your data? What's your evidence? Just a feeling, he says. She's shifty. Inadmissible in a court of law, I'm afraid. Facts are our only currency, she says, and provable facts at that. They only asked you to find a background anyway, didn't they? To give to the police? There's not much more to find, is there? He walks off to use the bathroom, and Olivia sits in the empty carriage, the one that everyone had been in when they all first boarded the train. The doors slide open, and Rory comes in. I lied to you, he says. What about? The black book. What, so Michael Lane wasn't collecting dirt on the people in the organisation? No, not that, he was. I said I'd only seen the book once. That's not true. He pushes his hand into the back pocket of his jeans and pulls out a small black notebook. This is it? Yeah. Can I read it? He holds it out to her and she flicks through the pages, reading the notes written down by Michael Lane. That's why I'm scared. Olivia looks up and nods to him. The service manager, Eve Miles, walks in from the next carriage. Eve, could you help us? Says Olivia. Is there somewhere that you can take Rory here that is safe for him to be in, and maybe can be locked? Olivia explains what they've found, and Eve agrees to help, then takes Rory away along the train to an office that is used by the service manager on board. The 390-metre-long E320 train noses into the Gare du Nord in Paris and comes to a halt alongside Platform 5. Police from the French Service National de Police Ferroviaire and others from the British Transport Police both board the train. Eve talks to the senior officers about what has happened, and Olivia explains the evidence that has come to light, while the carriages remain locked and the passengers wait. After 5 minutes, police officers open one of the side doors and go inside of the carriage, while Olivia, Eve and Rory wait at the back of the platform. After another minute, the officers emerge with the HR manager, James, in handcuffs, and he's led away. Peter, Ellie and Coral step out from the train with all the other passengers after the rest of the doors have opened, and they stop opposite Olivia. James had been diverting payments into personal accounts, says Olivia. Michael found out and recorded it all. Every account number, every date, every sum of money. James found out that Michael knew, and he suggested to Michael that he come to Paris on this journey so that James could corner Michael and isolate him on the train. James uses heroin, and he spiked the drink with a massive dose. The quiet man from HR, says Peter. You can never tell what's going on inside people's heads, can you? We're going to the hotel, Olivia, Rory. Are you coming? They say their goodbyes to Eve, and the group walk away to the taxi rank on the Rue de Dunkirk, outside the Gare du Nord. The Street Files, a complete mystery short story,
every Wednesday.